Marcus Hale was not a man who believed in ghosts. But that night, the sound drifting through the steel walls of his workshop made his heart stop. It was not the screech of metal or the hiss of gas lines leaking pressure. It was something else, something alive. A sound too soft and broken to belong to any machine. It was the sound of someone crying. The workshop sat at the edge of the colony's border, where the land turned to dark stone cliffs and the air thinned with desert winds. Marcus often worked late, surrounded by the smell of grease and the warm buzz of broken engines waiting for his hands. His was the only light burning in the sleeping outpost. At this hour, nothing should have been moving outside. Yet he heard it again. A trembling voice, a sob, almost human, but layered with something deeper, like a growl hidden in the throat. Marcus set his tool down slowly. The wrench slipped from his hand and clanged against the workbench, the echo sharp in the still air. He froze, waiting. There it was again. A cry, a plea. He pulled the door open. Cold night air rushed in, smelling of sand and smoke from the colony's far-off power stacks. The workshop lights spilled onto the dirt road, casting long shadows across the ground. First, he saw nothing. Only empty crates, stacked junk, and the skeleton of an old transport he had been planning to scrap. Then something shifted. Behind the piles of metal, curled against a rusted hull, a figure moved. Marcus narrowed his eyes. It looked like a woman, though her body seemed too tall, her skin pale with a faint shimmer under the moonlight. Her arms shook as if she was freezing, though the desert air was warm. Her shoulders trembled with each sob. "Hey!" Marcus called, his voice rough. "You lost." The figure flinched. She tried to shrink away, pressing herself deeper into the shadows. Then the faint glimmer on her back shifted, and Marcus's chest tightened. Those weren't shadows. They were wings, torn, broken, with faint cracks glowing like hot coals in the dark. He stepped forward, slow, careful. "You're hurt." She lifted her head. For a second, Marcus swore he saw fire flicker in her eyes, golden and sharp, but it vanished behind tears. She looked young. Maybe not in years, but in the way her face was twisted in fear, like a child who had run too far from home. Her lips parted, but only a broken whimper came out. She tried to rise, but her body failed her, and she fell against the dirt with a thud. Marcus rushed forward, catching her before her head struck the ground. Her skin burned hot, like metal left under a welding torch. "You're burning up," he muttered. She shook in his arms, clutching at his shirt like she was afraid he would let go. And then, in the faintest voice, she begged, "Don't let them find me." Them. The word echoed in Marcus's mind like a warning bell. He looked around the empty street. No one had followed her yet. He had no idea who she was, what she was, or why she was bleeding glowing light from wounds across her back. But she was shaking, half-conscious, and terrified. He didn't need answers right now. He just needed to move. Marcus carried her inside. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind him, locking the night out. He set her carefully on his work table, brushing away tools and wires. His eyes studied her, human in shape, yes, but her skin seemed to shift between flesh and scale. Tiny patches of blackened, cracked scales lined her arms, pulsing with faint light. Her wings twitched weakly, torn at the edges like she had flown through fire. Marcus grabbed his medkit, hands moving fast. He wasn't a doctor, he was an engineer. But he knew how to patch leaks, seal cracks, keep things running. Machines or people, it wasn't that different when they were falling apart. He cleaned the wounds with shaking hands. Her body tensed under his touch, a soft hiss escaping her lips as if fire lived inside her veins. "You'll be okay?" Marcus whispered, though he wasn't sure if it was true. Her breathing slowed, steadied. For a moment, he thought she might drift into sleep, but then her eyes flickered open again, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked at him as if trying to measure something, whether he was danger or safety. "Why help?" she asked, her voice broken, heavy with an accent not of this world. Marcus didn't have a good answer. He could have said it was because she looked human enough. He could have said it was because leaving her outside felt like leaving someone to die in the sand. But the truth was simpler. Because you needed it, he said. Her eyes shimmered, tears mixing with the faint glow of fire in her gaze. For the first time, she didn't look afraid, just tired. The night dragged on. Marcus worked beside her, fixing what he could, keeping her breathing steady. Outside, the desert was quiet, but every gust of wind against the metal walls made him tense, expecting shadows at the door. Whoever she was running from might come. Whoever they were, they had wounded her badly enough to nearly kill her. As the hours passed, the fire in her body dimmed. Her breathing softened. She no longer shook with fear. She lay still, her face calm for the first time. Marcus leaned back in his chair, exhaustion pulling at his eyes. He watched her, this strange dragon woman who had fallen out of the night into his shop, and wondered what kind of storm he had just stepped into. The first light of dawn slipped through the cracks in the metal roof, painting the workshop in pale gold. The woman stirred, her eyes blinking open slowly. She looked at Marcus, really looked at him with a softness that struck deeper than her flames. Her lips parted. In a whisper so faint he almost missed it, she breathed a single word. "Father." Marcus froze, his heart hammered in his chest. She drifted back into sleep, leaving him staring at her with wide eyes. Father. What had he just become? The desert sun had risen high above the colony when Marcus Hale finally pushed the workshop's steel shutters open. Blinding light poured in, throwing sharp lines across his cluttered tools and broken engines. He squinted against it, weary from a night without sleep. But his gaze was not on the daylight. It was on the strange figure lying motionless on his work table. The dragon woman. Her breathing was steady now, but faint heat still pulsed from her skin. The scales on her arms glimmered faintly, catching light like shards of metal. Her wings twitched once in a while, as though she dreamed of flying. Marcus rubbed a hand over his tired face. He had patched what he could, sealed her bleeding wounds with gel foam, cooled her fever with every coolant pack he had. But her injuries were not like anything he had treated before. Some of the burns looked as if they had been made by weapons no human engineer could identify. Circular marks cut into her scales, edges glowing like melted iron. They weren't just burns. They were scars of advanced war tech. She wasn't a lost traveler. She was a survivor of something bigger. Marcus walked to the corner, poured himself bitter coffee, and sat in the creaking chair near her. His tools hummed quietly in the background, machines running idle. For a while, he just listened to the faint hum of circuits and the woman's soft breaths. Then, without warning, her eyes snapped open. Marcus tensed, nearly dropping his cup. The glow in her gaze returned, sharper now, like fire caught in glass. She sat up fast, wings jerking. The work table screeched as her claws dug into the steel surface. "Easy," Marcus said, raising his hands. "You're safe here." Her chest rose and fell quickly, breaths sharp, eyes scanning the workshop like she was cornered. For a moment, Marcus thought she might leap at him, or through the door. Then her gaze fixed on him, studying, judging. "You helped," she said slowly. Her voice was stronger, though heavy with an echo that wasn't quite human. "Yeah," Marcus answered, keeping his tone calm. "You were bleeding all over my tools. Figured you needed it." She blinked, confused by his casualness. Then she looked down at her arms, at the sealed wounds glowing under the gel. She flexed her fingers, testing them. Marcus leaned forward. "Who did this to you?" Her eyes darkened. She turned away, as if even speaking the memory burned her. For a long time she said nothing. Only the faint trembling of her wings betrayed her fear. Marcus sighed. "Look, you don't have to tell me everything. But if someone's hunting you, I need to know what kind of danger just walked through my door." The silence stretched. Finally, in a broken whisper, she spoke. "They call themselves the Forge." Marcus frowned. "Forge? They take us," she said, her voice shaking. "Take my kind. Dragons. Break us. Shape us into weapons." Her hands curled into fists. Heat shimmered faintly off her skin, the temperature in the workshop rising. Marcus's gut tightened. He had heard rumors, stories of raiders with strange tech, of experiments carried out in secret across the frontier. But dragons? He had thought they were myths, old stories told to children. Now one was sitting in his workshop, trembling like a wounded soldier. "They tried to bind me," she whispered. "Chains of fire and steel. But I ran. They hunt me still." Marcus leaned back, his mind racing. Whoever the Forge were, they had technology far beyond the colony's defense. If they were chasing her, it was only a matter of time before they came here. Her eyes flicked up to him suddenly. "You should not have helped me. They will come for you now." Marcus gave a humorless laugh. "Too late for that, don't you think?" He gestured around the workshop. "You showed up bleeding fire at my doorstep. Whatever storm is coming, I'm already in it." For the first time, her expression softened. A flicker of something, trust maybe, lit her features. Marcus stood, pacing. "All right, if they're hunting you, we need to prepare. This place isn't a fortress, but—" He glanced at the machines, the weapons half-built, the drones scattered across his shelves. His mind ticked like gears turning. "I can make it one." Her wings twitched. "You would fight them? For me?" Marcus shrugged. "I'm an engineer. Fighting isn't my job. But I don't like bullies. And I sure as hell don't like the idea of anyone turning people into weapons." He looked at her. "So yeah, I'll fight. If I have to." She stared at him for a long moment, then bowed her head slightly. "You are strange. Human." He grinned faintly. "I get that a lot." The hours that followed were filled with noise. Marcus tore apart old drones, rewired scanners, reinforced the doors with heavy plating. His hands moved fast, his mind sharper than ever. The woman, no, the dragon, watched him quietly, sometimes asking questions about his tools, sometimes simply sitting in silence as though the weight of her past pressed too hard for words. At one point, Marcus caught her tracing a claw over a broken engine's steel frame. Her touch melted a groove into the metal, leaving it glowing orange. "Hell," he muttered, staring. She pulled her hand back quickly, ashamed. "I cannot control it. Not fully." Marcus shook his head. "Don't be sorry. That's power." She whispered something in her own tongue, soft, like a prayer, and for a moment Marcus swore the air vibrated with heat. But the peace didn't last. Near dusk, the workshop's old scanner began to beep. Marcus froze, staring at the display. Unfamiliar signals pulsed across the screen. Fast, sharp, deliberate. Ships in orbit. Not colony ships. His stomach dropped. "They found you." The dragon woman's eyes widened. Her wings twitched as if ready to bolt, but Marcus raised a hand. "No, running won't work. If they're in orbit, they'll track you anywhere. Better we face them here where I've got tools." Her breathing quickened. "They will burn this place. Burn you." Marcus's jaw tightened. He grabbed a wrench, slamming it against the table with a sharp clang. "Then let's make them regret stepping foot near my shop." The dragon woman's eyes glowed, fire reflecting off her tears. For the first time she smiled. A small, fragile thing. Outside, the sky darkened. Stars appeared one by one. But among them, faint red lights began to blink. Ships, hunters, the forge. And in the heart of the colony, in a lonely workshop lit by humming machines, a human engineer and a broken dragon prepared for the storm about to fall upon them. The night was quiet, but Marcus could not rest. His eyes stayed locked on the scanner's blinking red lights. They moved across the screen in slow arcs, too steady to be anything natural. Ships, more than one. Their patterns were careful, hunting. The forge had come. Inside the workshop, the dragon woman stirred in uneasy sleep. Her wings twitched, claws scraping against the table as her body jerked. Marcus leaned over, studying her face. Sweat, or maybe heat, glimmered on her skin. She was trapped in some nightmare. "No, no, cages," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not again." Marcus clenched his fists. He didn't need to know the full story to understand. Whoever the forge were, they had hurt her. They had chained her. And they were coming to do it again. He turned back to his machines. Sparks flew as he welded plates onto the doors, sealing the shop tighter. His drones, old recon bots he had salvaged from battlefield junk, hovered in the air, their optics glowing blue as they synced with his control pad. He armed what he could: pulse rifles, mining charges, even tools sharpened into weapons. Still, his chest tightened with doubt. He was only one man, an engineer, not a soldier. Could he really hold off ships full of trained hunters? He looked back at her, the dragon woman. Even wounded, her presence filled the room like fire waiting to ignite. He remembered her whisper at dawn. "Father!" The word still echoed in his chest. He set his jaw. No matter the odds, he would not let them take her. Hours crawled by. Midnight came. The scanner beeped again, sharper this time. A new signal. Closer. Marcus hurried to the roof hatch, climbing the ladder with a rifle slung across his back. He pushed the hatch open and stepped into the cold night air. Stars stretched across the sky, but among them, red glows moved like predators circling their prey. Then he saw it, one of the ships breaking formation. It dropped lower, its engines growling in the distance. A dark triangle against the stars, cutting through the sky like a blade. "They're here," Marcus muttered. The workshop's roof trembled under his boots. He dropped back inside, sealed the hatch, and raced down the ladder. The dragon woman was awake now. She sat up, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "I feel them," she whispered. Her voice was sharp, like heat hissing through a crack. Marcus grabbed his control pad, activating the drones. "Good, because they're landing." Her wings twitched. Fear flickered in her gaze, but beneath it, a spark of anger burned. Outside, the colony slept, unaware of the shadow falling upon it. Engines roared as the forged ship descended. Dust and sand blasted into the streets, rattling the metal walls. Marcus crouched by the door, rifle ready. His drones spread through the workshop like restless hawks. Every sound outside made his pulse pound harder. Then footsteps, heavy, mechanical. The first knock against the workshop door was not a knock at all. It was a hammering crash. Steel bent inward, the reinforced plate screeching under the force. The dragon woman hissed, her claws digging into the table. Her eyes flared gold. Marcus aimed his rifle at the door. "Stay behind me." Another crash. The door groaned. Then, with a metallic scream, it burst inward. A figure stepped through the smoke. It was no ordinary soldier. The intruder's armor gleamed black and silver, covered in lines that pulsed with molten light. Its helmet was smooth, faceless, glowing with two piercing red eyes. In its hand, it carried a weapon shaped like a lance, humming with power. The hunter, forge-made. Marcus fired first. The rifle spat bolts of energy, slamming into the armor. Sparks exploded, but the soldier kept coming. It raised its weapon, and the lance whirred to life with a high-pitched screech. "Marcus!" the dragon woman cried. The hunter swung. Marcus dove, rolling across the floor as the lance cut into the workbench, splitting metal like paper. Tools flew in every direction. The dragon woman leapt up, fire glowing at her throat. She screamed, a sound that shook the air, and a stream of flame burst from her mouth, striking the hunter's chest. The heat warped the armor, forcing the soldier back a step. But the flame sputtered. Her body shuddered, weak from wounds. She fell to her knees, gasping. The hunter straightened, armor smoking. It tilted its head at her, as if studying prey. Then it raised the lance to strike her down. Marcus roared. He grabbed a mining charge from his belt and hurled it. The device clattered at the hunter's feet, blinking red. Boom! The blast shook the walls, flames rolling across the workshop. The hunter flew backward, armor dented, but still moving. Marcus ran to the dragon woman, pulling her to her feet. "Come on! We can't stay here." "No!" she gasped, her eyes blazing. "If we run, they will follow. Always follow." The hunter rose from the smoke, steps heavy. More footsteps echoed outside. Shadows moved beyond the broken door. More soldiers coming. Marcus's heart pounded. This was just the beginning. He tightened his grip on the rifle. "Then we make a stand." The dragon woman looked at him, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with fire. For the first time, she nodded. The hunt had begun. The night sky over the colony lit up with fire. The forged ships descended like predators, engines screaming as they broke through the clouds. Red beams of light swept across the ground, scanning, searching. The colony's weak defense towers flickered online, firing a few desperate bursts, but their shots bounced harmlessly against the hunters' black armor. Panic spread through the streets. Civilians ran from their homes, clutching children and supplies. The roar of engines and the thunder of weapons shook the ground. The forge had come, and no one was ready. Inside his workshop, Marcus Hale braced against the trembling walls. Sparks showered from broken lights overhead. His drones buzzed nervously, their optics glowing blue as they circled him. Beside him, the dragon woman crouched low, her claws pressed to the floor, her eyes glowing with fury. The first hunter stepped forward through the broken door. Smoke trailed from its cracked armor where Marcus's charge had hit earlier, but it was far from beaten. Behind it, more shadows moved. 2, 3, maybe more. Their glowing red eyes pierced the dark like hellfire. "Great," Marcus muttered. "Whole welcoming parties here." The dragon woman rose, wings spreading wide despite their torn edges. The heat in the workshop spiked as fire flickered at her throat. "They will not take me again," she hissed. The hunters advanced, their lances humming with power. Marcus pointed to the far side of the room. "Stay low until I say. Trust me." She gave him a sharp look, but she nodded. Marcus hit the control pad on his wrist. Instantly, his drones swarmed forward. Blue energy bolts sprayed from their cannons, slamming into the hunters. Sparks burst against black armor, slowing their steps but not stopping them. "Move!" Marcus shouted. The dragon woman leapt. A roar burst from her chest, fire exploding from her mouth in a blazing stream. The flames washed over the hunters, their armor glowing red under the heat. The front soldier staggered, shielding its visor. Another tried to push forward, but its weapon melted in her fire. The workshop filled with smoke and light. The walls rattled with each blast. Marcus fired his rifle, the pulse bolts slamming into weak spots the fire exposed. One hunter fell, its armor cracking under the combined assault. But more poured in. The forged soldiers marched through the doorway, their heavy boots shaking the floor. One swung its lance, striking a drone out of the air, shattering it into sparks. Another fired a bolt of energy that ripped across the workshop, exploding against the wall. Marcus ducked behind a workbench. His ears rang, but his mind raced. He spotted the old plasma cutter in the corner, industrial grade, never meant for combat. He grabbed it, flipped it on, and the beam flared to life. The next hunter lunged. Marcus sidestepped, jamming the cutter into its side. Metal hissed, melted, and the soldier convulsed before collapsing. "Not bad for an engineer," Marcus muttered through clenched teeth. The dragon woman fought like a storm unleashed. Her wings lashed out, knocking soldiers back. Flames erupted with each roar, her body glowing brighter as though her fury fed her strength. She was fire and rage wrapped in human shape. Yet she faltered. Each burst of flame drained her, her knees trembling under the weight of her wounds. She collapsed to one side, gasping, her claws scraping against the floor. A hunter saw its chance. It raised its lance high, ready to strike her down. Marcus fired without thinking. His rifle spat bolt after bolt into its helmet until sparks flew and the soldier dropped. He sprinted to her side, pulling her up. "Stay with me," he shouted over the chaos. Her eyes burned with tears and fire. "They never stop. They never stop." Marcus tightened his grip on her arm. "Then neither do we." Outside, the colony itself had erupted into chaos. From the shattered door, Marcus saw streaks of fire as the forged ships fired down on fleeing civilians. Screams echoed through the streets. The defense towers sparked and failed one by one. The forge wasn't just here for her. They were burning everything. Rage boiled in Marcus's chest. This was his home. These were his people. He wasn't going to let some nightmare army tear it apart. He activated the last of his drones. All units, outside. The small machines darted into the night, firing on the soldiers in the streets. Their bolts lit up the colony, giving civilians precious seconds to run. Marcus dragged the dragon woman toward the door. She stumbled, but her fire still glowed faintly, ready to ignite. Together, they stepped into the burning streets. The sight stole Marcus's breath. The sky was on fire. Dozens of forged ships hovered above, their beams cutting across the colony like blades. Buildings collapsed under the bombardment. Civilians scattered in terror. Soldiers in black armor marched in lines, rounding up anyone they could. The dragon woman staggered, her voice breaking. They want to take them too. Marcus's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about her. The Forge wanted more prisoners, more test subjects for their twisted weapons. Not on my watch, Marcus growled. He raised his rifle and opened fire. Drones swarmed down from the sky, joining him. Energy bolts lit up the street. One by one, Forge soldiers fell, their armor sparking and breaking. Civilians saw the opening and fled deeper into the colony. The dragon woman screamed, unleashing a torrent of fire that turned an entire squad into ash. The heat lit up the night, forcing other soldiers back. For a moment, hope flickered. Then the sky roared. A massive Forge gunship descended, its shadow swallowing the street. Its cannons glowed, targeting Marcus's workshop, the place where this resistance had started. No! Marcus shouted. The cannons fired. The blast hit like thunder, shaking the ground, tearing his workshop apart in a storm of fire and metal. Sparks and debris rained down. The only home Marcus had ever known collapsed into ruin before his eyes. He staggered back, smoke filling his lungs. His heart clenched as the wreckage burned. The dragon woman stepped beside him, her eyes glowing with fury. She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. They destroy all, she whispered. Unless we destroy them first. Marcus stared at the ruins of his workshop, fists shaking. His home was gone. His tools, everything he had built, turned to ash. But the fire in his chest only grew. He looked at her, the dragon woman who had called him father, and he made his choice. Then we fight, he said, his voice like steel. Not just for you, for all of us. Above them, the forged ships circled like vultures. Below, the colony burned. The battle had only begun. The colony burned. Smoke rose into the night sky, curling between the stars. Forged ships hovered above, their engines glowing red like the eyes of monsters. The streets were filled with fire, shattered glass, and the cries of civilians running for their lives. Marcus stood in the middle of it all, his chest heaving, rifle hot in his hands. The workshop he had spent half his life building was gone, reduced to rubble by the Forge gunship's cannons. The machines he had poured sweat and years into were twisted into molten piles of steel. His home, his world, had been erased in one blast. But Marcus did not fall to despair. Instead, he felt a fire inside him, a fire that matched the glowing rage of the dragon woman at his side. She stood tall now, despite her wounds, her eyes burning gold, her wings twitching with restless fury. The heat radiating from her body made the air shimmer. Her claws dug into the broken street, and when she breathed, smoke curled from her lips. Marcus glanced at her. Even with her power, she looked young. Too young to carry scars that deep. He saw her trembling, not just from pain but from fear she wouldn't admit. And yet, when her gaze met his, he saw something else, trust. He thought of her whisper from that first dawn. Father. That word had changed everything. Another squad of Forge soldiers marched down the street, their lances glowing. Civilians scattered as the black-armored figures advanced. One pointed toward Marcus and the dragon woman, red eyes flashing. They want you, Marcus muttered, but they'll have to go through me first. The dragon woman tilted her head, fire flickering in her throat. You fight for me, she whispered. It wasn't a question. Marcus gripped his rifle tighter. Yeah, I do. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. Then the soldiers charged. Marcus fired first, pulse bolts tearing into the squad. His drones swooped overhead, blasting streams of light into their armor. The dragon woman roared, unleashing a wave of fire that lit up the entire street. Heat scorched Marcus's skin, but he didn't flinch. The soldiers faltered, their armor glowing red-hot. One by one, they fell. When the last collapsed, the street was silent except for the crackle of fire and the distant screams of the colony. Marcus lowered his rifle, panting. He glanced at the dragon woman. She swayed on her feet, smoke rising from her wounds. He caught her before she fell. "You're burning yourself out," he said, his voice rough. She leaned against him, trembling. Better to burn than to be chained. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He looked at her, really looked, and realized she was not just some stranger who had stumbled into his life. She was someone broken, someone hunted, someone who had no one else. And she had chosen him. He had lost everything tonight. But maybe he had gained something greater. He pulled her closer, steadying her. "Listen to me. You're not alone anymore. You hear me? I'm not letting them take you. I don't care who they are or what they are. They'll have to kill me first." Her golden eyes widened, shimmering with tears that refused to fall. Slowly, she whispered, "Father." Marcus felt the words strike deep into his chest. It wasn't just a slip this time. It wasn't confusion. She meant it. He swallowed hard, his voice low. "Then you're my daughter, and no one lays a hand on my family." The bond was sealed, not in blood, but in fire and choice. The colony shook as another forged ship descended, its cannons glowing. Marcus's drones swarmed, but the gunship fired, blasting the street apart. Marcus shielded her with his body as debris rained down. Dust and fire swallowed them. When the smoke cleared, the ship hovered above, its loudspeaker crackling. A voice, metallic and cold, echoed through the burning streets. "Return the subject," it ordered. "Surrender, and your deaths will be swift." The dragon woman stiffened, her claws digging into Marcus's arm. "They speak of me," she said, voice shaking. Marcus snarled, staring up at the ship. "Yeah? Well, they can come and try." The gunship's bay doors opened. More hunters dropped down, their armor gleaming red in the firelight. At least a dozen. Marcus cursed under his breath. "Too many." He turned to her. "You need to get out. Fly, run, something." She shook her head violently, tears mixing with smoke. "No, I will not leave you. You are my father." Marcus felt something raw tear through him. He had never had children, never even dreamed of being called a father. Yet now, in the middle of hell, this dragon woman claimed him as family. And he realized he wanted it. He wanted to protect her, raise her, fight for her, even die for her if that's what it took. He raised his rifle, fire gleaming in his eyes. "Then we fight together." The hunters advanced. Marcus triggered his drones. The small machines screamed through the air, raining fire on the soldiers. The dragon woman roared, wings spreading wide, her flames brighter than ever. Marcus charged forward, firing until his rifle overheated. The street became a battlefield. Fire clashed with steel. Marcus fought like a man with nothing left to lose, every strike fueled by rage and love. The dragon woman fought like a storm, her fire consuming the hunters one by one. But the forge kept coming. Their numbers were endless. Marcus ducked behind wreckage, panting. His drones were nearly gone, shot from the sky. His rifle was almost drained. He looked at her, his daughter now, and saw her fire dimming. She was burning herself out. He clenched his teeth. If this was their last stand, then so be it. They would die as family. But then, something shifted. The dragon woman closed her eyes, her body trembling. She pressed her clawed hand against Marcus's chest, over his heart. Fire glowed at her palm, but it did not burn him. Instead, warmth spread through him, fierce, powerful, alive. Her voice echoed in his mind, soft but unyielding. "Father, we fight as one." Marcus's eyes widened as his body surged with strength. His rifle hummed hotter, drones reactivating on their own. Around him, His machines flared to life as if answering her fire. The bond between them was more than words, it was power. He grinned through the smoke. "All right, kid. Let's show them what family can do." Together they rose. The next wave of hunters came, and Marcus and the dragon woman met them head-on. Fire and steel, human and dragon, father and daughter, united. The forged soldiers fell one after another. The gunship roared above, its cannons charging, but Marcus stared it down with fire burning in his eyes. This was no longer just survival. This was war. And for the first time, Marcus knew he was ready. The colony was no longer just burning. It was dying. Buildings collapsed under the endless bombardment. Firestorms swept the streets, and screams filled the air. The forged ships circled above like vultures, their red engines glowing in the night sky. Marcus stood in the ruins, his body aching, his rifle almost dead. His drones sputtered in the air, barely holding on. At his side, the dragon woman. His daughter now, no matter what anyone said, stood with smoke curling from her mouth, her scales cracked and glowing. Her fire had weakened, but her spirit had not. Above them, the largest forged ship descended. It was a monster of steel, its armored hull blotting out the stars, its cannons glowing with the power to erase an entire city block in one shot. The loudspeaker boomed again, cold and merciless. "Human engineer, Subject 7. You cannot resist. Hand her over, or your world burns." Marcus looked at his daughter. She stared back at him with wide golden eyes. For a second, she looked so small, so fragile. Then her claws curled, and he saw the fire rise again inside her. "I will not go back," she whispered. "You won't," Marcus said, his voice steady even as the ground shook beneath them. He raised his rifle, cracked a half-smile, and muttered, "Not while I'm still breathing." The forged ship's cannons roared. Marcus grabbed her hand and ran, pulling her into the wreckage of a collapsed building just as the street exploded behind them. Dust and fire swallowed everything. The shockwave knocked him down, but he forced himself up. His body screamed in pain, but he wouldn't stop. His daughter coughed, clutching his arm. "Father!" He helped her to her feet. "We're not dying here. Not like this. We fight." She stared at him, trembling. Then she nodded slowly. Fire glimmered in her throat. Above, the forged ship prepared another strike. Troop carriers released more soldiers, black figures raining down from the sky. The streets filled with their heavy boots, the sound of war machines crushing stone. Marcus's heart pounded, but he felt something else too. A strange calm. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was acceptance. Or maybe it was the bond they now shared, fire and steel fused together. He whispered, "All right, kid. One last stand." The dragon woman's golden eyes blazed. She stepped forward, wings unfurling in the smoke. Together they faced the army. The forged soldiers advanced. Marcus raised his rifle and fired. His drones, half-broken and sparking, dragged themselves into the air, blasting weak but desperate streams of energy. The dragon woman roared, fire bursting from her chest in a stream that lit up the sky. The first wave of soldiers burned. But more came, always more. The forged ship opened fire again, explosions ripping through the colony. Marcus felt the ground buckling. He knew they couldn't win this fight forever. But maybe, just maybe, they could end it here. He turned to her. "Listen to me. We can't just fight them. We have to hit that ship. Take out the command." She blinked, chest heaving. "The heart of the monster." "Exactly," Marcus said. His voice dropped. "But I can't reach it without you." Her eyes widened, then softened. She pressed her clawed hand against his chest again, over his heart. "Then we fight as one." Marcus felt the fire spread through him, fiercer than ever before. His rifle flared, his drones powered back to life, his broken machines repairing themselves as if answering her fire. The bond between them had become something more, an engine of war. The forged soldiers charged again. Marcus met them head-on, his shots tearing through armor like paper. His drones screamed overhead, exploding in sacrificial blasts that leveled squads at a time. The dragon woman unleashed waves of fire so bright they turned night into day. The street became a storm of flame and steel. Then Marcus shouted, pointing at the massive forged ship overhead. Now! Hit the core! The dragon woman leapt into the air, wings spreading wide. She soared through the smoke, fire trailing behind her like a comet. Forge soldiers fired, ships targeted her. But Marcus covered her with everything he had. Rifle fire, drones, even throwing broken machinery as improvised bombs. She reached the ship, claws digging into its black hull. Fire burst from her body, searing metal, tearing open armor. Marcus saw her glowing against the dark sky like a star being born. The ship trembled. Its cannons charged, desperate to stop her. Marcus sprinted through the streets, dodging fire, screaming into the chaos. Do it! Burn them all! The dragon woman let out a roar that shook the heavens. Her body blazed brighter than ever, fire pouring into the ship's core. The forge vessel split open, explosions ripping through its body. One by one, its engines erupted, until the entire monster of steel collapsed in on itself, falling from the sky like a dying star. The impact shook the colony. The ground buckled, buildings toppled, fire swept through the streets. Marcus threw himself behind cover, shielding his face as the shockwave roared past. Then silence. When he lifted his head, the forged ship was nothing but burning wreckage, a crater where it had stood. The remaining soldiers scattered, fleeing into the night. The colony was scarred, but alive. Marcus staggered to his feet, searching the skies desperately. Kid, where are you? For a terrifying moment, there was nothing but smoke. Then, through the firelight, a figure stumbled forward. The dragon woman collapsed into his arms, her body smoking, her scales cracked but her eyes still glowing faintly. She smiled weakly. Father! Marcus held her tight, his voice breaking. You did it. You saved us. Her eyelids fluttered. We saved us. Marcus laughed through his tears, clutching her closer. He looked at the burning wreckage of the forged ship and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The war wasn't over. The forge would return. But now they knew humanity was not alone. And Marcus was no longer just an engineer. He was a father. And together they were fire and steel. If you loved this story, don't forget to subscribe to Sci-Fi Galaxy for more HFY adventures. Your support keeps the fire alive.